When I was 9, I drew a portrait of my grandmother from a faded black and white photograph. I shaded her soft wrinkles, captured the quiet sadness in her eyes, and even traced the pearls she always wore. I showed it to my parents, my heart pounding, hoping for a smile or maybe just a nod. My mother looked at it briefly, then went back to folding laundry. "That's sweet," she said. My father chuckled. "Art won't pay the bills, kid. Get good at math instead." I laughed with them, not because it was funny, but because I didn't want to cry. Please subscribe to our channel and tell me in comments from where are you watching this video. For years, I drew in secret. I sketched on the back of my school notebooks, painted with coffee and dirt when I had no supplies, and sneaked into the art room during lunch just to feel the texture of real canvas under my fingers. It was my escape, my world, but one I had to build behind closed doors. When other kids showed off their soccer trophies or science fair ribbons, I silently folded up my sketchbook and hid it under my bed. I learned early on that some dreams are too delicate to expose to people who don't believe in magic. In high school, I entered a local art contest. I stayed up for 3 nights painting a cityscape of a world where emotions hung in the air like glowing orbs, reds for anger, blue for sadness, gold for joy. I called it the weight of feeling. I didn't win. When I showed it to my parents, they blinked at it like it was an alien language. "What is this?" my mother asked. "Too abstract," my dad added. "You're wasting your time." That night, I crumpled the canvas and tossed it into the dumpster behind the school. College was a battle. I begged them to let me attend a fine arts program in New York. My mom said it was irresponsible, and my dad laughed so hard he nearly choked on his coffee. "An artist? In this economy?" he scoffed. "You'll be back in 6 months, broke and hungry." They wanted me to study business at the local university. Something practical, something real. I compromised. I enrolled in business, but secretly audited art classes in the evenings, surviving off ramen and cheap paint from thrift shops. I worked 2 jobs and slept 4 hours a night. My roommate thought I was crazy. I thought I was finally alive. At 22, I uploaded a time-lapse video of myself painting a mural in a crumbling alley downtown. It showed a woman peeling off her gray skin to reveal a spectrum of colors beneath. A metaphor for shedding judgment, shame, and expectation. I didn't expect much. I had 34 subscribers, but the next morning my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The video had gone viral. Overnight, I became the girl who painted souls. Within 2 weeks, I had offers from art blogs, local TV stations, and even a gallery owner in LA. My inbox exploded with people telling me how much they resonated with my work, how the woman in the mural reminded them of their mother or themselves. I cried on the floor of my tiny apartment, surrounded by paint-splattered clothes and empty takeout boxes. For the first time, I didn't feel invisible. When I called my parents to tell them the news, my dad was silent. My mom said, "That's nice," but I could hear the doubt lingering in her voice, wrapped in worry and pride she didn't know how to show. "Just don't let it distract you from real life," she added. I hung up feeling both elated and hollow. I spent the next year painting murals across cities. My pieces were featured in magazines. I was invited to speak at schools. I collaborated with nonprofits to bring color to struggling communities. People stopped me on the street to thank me for making them feel seen. My parents didn't come to a single exhibit, not one. But things changed the day I was invited to unveil a commissioned piece at a prestigious museum gala, a tribute to artists who had overcome adversity. My portrait was titled "Laugh Now," and it depicted a faceless figure standing on a pile of broken crayons, holding a brush like a sword, painting a doorway into light. Beneath it I wrote, "To the kids whose dreams were laughed at, let the sound of your triumph be louder than their doubt." The night before the gala, my phone rang. It was my dad. He said they were flying in. "We didn't realize it was this big," he said, voice brittle. I didn't answer right away. My silence made him uncomfortable. "We're proud of you, okay?" he added like he was reading off a script. My mother took the phone. "We just want to see you shine." I almost told them not to come, but something in me, the child who had waited years to be seen, said yes. What happened at the gala? wasn't what anyone expected. The night of the gala was bathed in a golden kind of magic, the kind that only arrives after you've bled for years in silence. The museum, a towering glass and steel structure that had once seemed a world away from anything I could touch, now featured my name at the entrance. Featured artist, Mia Calderon. My fingers trembled slightly as I adjusted the cuffs of my custom-painted blazer, its inside lining covered in miniature sketches from my childhood, a quiet rebellion stitched into the fabric. I didn't expect to see them standing there, right by the front entrance. My parents. My father in a stiff suit he hadn't worn since my cousin's wedding. My mother in a dress I didn't recognize, blue silk, the same color she always said reminded her of hope. They looked older than I remembered. My dad's once jet black hair now thinning at the edges, my mom's hands clutching her purse like it was an anchor. For a moment, they just stared at me, like they weren't sure who I'd become. Or maybe they were trying to recognize something familiar in the person they had once dismissed. When my name was announced and I walked onto the stage, the applause filled the hall like a crashing wave. I didn't look at them right away. I was afraid, not of failing, but of still wanting their approval after all these years. My hands shook slightly as I held the mic, but my voice didn't. Not this time. I used to paint in the dark, I began. Not because I didn't have electricity, but because I was afraid someone would see what I was trying to create. I was told it wasn't practical, that it was childish, that it wasn't real life. A few polite chuckles. I took a deep breath. But tonight, in this room, I want to speak to the child hiding in every artist, the one whose dreams were laughed at, belittled, or ignored. You are real, and your art is louder than the silence they tried to bury you in. The crowd stood, cameras flashed. Somewhere in the blur of light, I saw my mother's hands clutched at her chest, and my father wiping under his eyes, pretending it was just a cough. I stepped down and led them toward the gallery space, where my main installation, Laugh Now, was hidden behind a velvet curtain. Before unveiling it, I turned to my parents. Do you remember when I was 16 and I told you I wanted to go to art school? I asked. My father nodded slowly, unsure of what to say. And you told me it was a hobby, that it would never be anything more. He looked down, lips pressed into a thin line. My mother reached for my hand, the first time she'd done so in years. We were wrong, she said softly. We didn't understand. I pulled the curtain, and there it was. Laugh Now, larger than life. A faceless child curled into herself, surrounded by mocking shadows labeled, Grow up, get a real job, you'll fail. But rising behind her was a towering version of the same girl, colors dripping from her hands, turning the insults into wings. The plaque read, Dedicated to the ones who stayed silent long enough to find their own voice. The crowd went quiet. No applause. Just silence, the kind that lingers after truth has been spoken. After the exhibit, as guests mingled and shook my hand, a reporter from a major news outlet asked if she could interview me for a feature. I agreed. My parents stood awkwardly nearby, watching people treat me like someone important, someone they barely recognized. Later, back at my apartment, my father asked if he could see my studio. I hesitated, then nodded. He walked in and saw the dozens of unfinished canvases, stacks of sketchbooks, and jars of mismatched brushes. He picked up one of the notebooks and flipped through it, page after page filled with drawings of faceless people, some caged, some flying, all silent. I didn't know you had all this inside you, he said. I did, I replied. I just didn't think you wanted to see it. He sat down on the small stool by the window, where I often watched the sunrise while painting. When you were little, he said slowly, you used to draw on the walls. We painted over them every time. Maybe we shouldn't have. My mother stepped into the room, holding a box. She opened it. Inside were old, folded papers, drawings I thought they had thrown away. My childhood art, crumpled, torn, but saved. We didn't know how to support you, she whispered. We were scared you'd get hurt in a world that doesn't always reward artists. I stood frozen, unsure whether to cry, laugh, or walk away. "Are we too late?" my father asked. That question stayed with me long after they left that night. Now, years later, my art hangs in cities across the globe. I've painted for protests, galleries, children's hospitals, and silent souls who find their voices through color. My story is told in textbooks, in podcasts, in whispers among hopeful teens whose parents still scoff at their dreams. At the center of my exhibit is an empty frame. The plaque says, "For moments no one thought mattered." My parents visit. They don't laugh anymore.